We all know greenhouse gas emissions around the world are rising rapidly, mostly from fossil fuel consumption. Hydroelectric power stations, like Trent University's two dams, are usually promoted as a way to make power without all the hassle. But is it too good to be true? I spoke to one environmental sciences professor at Trent about some of the impacts of dams that many of us in Canada never see.
Okay, so could you introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Stephen Bakke. I'm a professor in the Environmental and Resource Studies program at Trent University.
He says the remoteness of most dams in Canada prevents us from seeing the damage they can cause to local ecosystems.
Well, there's the impact of when a reservoir is created and the loss of habitat that is the results. There's the blocking of aquatic fauna in the streams, like migrating fish, for example. Fish like salmon, for example, swimming upstream are blocked by the dams when they're constructed. Often enough, wetlands and other areas that are suitable for waterfowl are flooded and eliminated when reservoirs are created.
Of course, it's even harder to see one of the most concerning impacts dams can have: greenhouse gas emissions from the reservoirs created to build up water pressure for the turbines that generate their electricity.
Well, on the one hand, like producing electricity with the hydroelectric dams doesn't involve burning fossil fuels, so there's that gain in terms of less greenhouse gases being produced. On the other hand, it's usually been the experience that when a reservoir is created behind a dam, if it floods the land and the land hasn't been cleared of vegetation before the reservoir is created, then all that vegetation will decompose. And if there's vegetation that's above the level of the water, it'll decompose and produce a lot of carbon dioxide. Basically, all the carbon dioxide that was contained within the vegetation in the first place, the carbon is mobilized as carbon dioxide, so that's a greenhouse gas. And then flooded vegetation that is submerged, it will decompose anaerobically and without the presence of oxygen. And when that's the case, then it produces not just carbon dioxide, but lots of methane.
The net effects of dams on carbon cycling aren't totally clear. It's known that some sedimentation occurs in reservoirs, acting as a carbon sink. But it is known that a significant amount of methane is released from dams, and maybe even more of a concern than carbon dioxide. That's because over a 100-year lifespan, methane is about 21 times more potent at warming the atmosphere. An International Rivers Network report states that most of the methane in dams is produced at the bottom of reservoirs, and without turbines would be largely oxidized into carbon dioxide in water. But when methane-rich deep water is released at the dam, the pressure acting on it suddenly drops, and most of its dissolved methane is released directly into the atmosphere. In 2000, a team led by researchers at the University of Alberta noted that emissions from reservoirs are not yet calculated into the country's carbon emissions under the Kyoto Protocol. They estimated, though, the carbon dioxide and methane from reservoirs contribute about 7% as much in their contribution to global warming as all other human emissions combined. So how much should we be relying on hydroelectricity as a source of renewable energy? A 2008 study led by Brazilian researcher Ivan Lima showed that large dams do annually release 1/2 to 2/3 the amount of methane given off by natural sources like wetlands, termites, and forest fires globally. But the researchers also said most of it could be captured as a source of energy itself. Methane is, after all, the main component of natural gas, and is already being exploited in biogas plants around the world. Stephen Bakke has a different idea, however.
The best way is, if you're going to create a reservoir, then clear it. Get the vegetation out of there so there's less stuff to decompose. It's kind of common sense, but often enough it hasn't been done in Canada or in other countries as well, like in Brazil, for example.
You must have me confused with some other guy. Not like them, baby. The bridges go burn. Now it's your turn. It's your turn to cry. So I'll be a river. Go on and just